pop song from African folktale and tutorial channels have been live. Yo, listen up, gather round. I got a tale to tell, a story profound. From Africa's roots where the wisdom's found. Septum AI's the channel that's turning it around. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and turn on the notification bell. Show some love. Septum A's got the knowledge from above. Folk tales and tutorials to elevate your mind. Subscribe, like, share, comment, turn on the notification bell, and let the wisdom shine. General folk tales to inspirational oh might. We're sharing the stories that'll ignite your passion for learning, your curiosity too. Septum AI's the hub where the knowledge is true. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and turn on the notification bell. Show some love. Septum A's got the knowledge from above.
Wonders they say shall never cease. Now let me tell you a story from my own point of view about a small town that vanished overnight. Grab your popcorn, enjoy as you watch. Part 1. I had been driving for hours, guided only by a fading map and vague directions from a stranger at the last gas station. He called it a quiet place, almost hesitating, like he was warning me. The moment I turned onto the dirt road, a thick fog descended, wrapping around my car like a ghostly shroud. It felt like the world grew quieter with every mile. When I finally saw the dim lights of the town in the distance, a strange chill ran down my spine, as if I was being watched. The town itself looked like something out of a forgotten era. The buildings were old but well kept, their faded signs hinting at a once thriving community. The streets were eerily empty, save for the occasional shadows behind closed curtains. When I checked into the small inn at the center of town, the elderly innkeeper handed me a key with a forced smile. That night, as I lay in the creaky bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The silence outside was too absolute, too unnatural, broken only by faint whispers. I convinced myself with the wind. The next morning, I decided to explore. The townsfolk were polite but distant, their faces weary, as though weighed down by some invisible burden. The waitress at the dinner served me without a word. When I tried to make small talk, she walked away, her eyes darting nervously toward the window. Outside, a child stood motionless by the general store, staring at me with unsettling intensity. I waved, but he didn't respond. As I wandered through the streets, I noticed odd details. The clocks in the shop windows all showed different times. Some stopped altogether. The air smelled faintly of decay, though there were no visible signs of rot. When I asked a passing man about the town's history, he froze, then hurried away without answering. That evening, as I sat on the inn's porch, faint lights flickered in the woods beyond the town. A rhythmic pausing, almost like a signal. I decided to investigate the following day, unaware that I was about to stumble into a nightmare. That night, I couldn't sleep. The quiet of the town was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the old inn and the distant hoots of an owl. As I stared at the ceiling, I heard faint footsteps in the hallway. At first, I thought it was another guest, but when I stepped outside, the corridor was empty. The old wooden floor groaned under my feet, and I felt the eerie sensation of being watched. I peeked through the curtains of my room and saw shadows moving outside, just beyond the circle of light cast by the street lamp. They were vague, almost human-shaped, but their movements were unnatural, jerky, as if they were trying to mimic life. I locked my door and sat upright in bed, my heart pounding. At one point, I thought I heard whispers outside my window. When I dared to look, the street was empty again. The next morning, the town seemed even quieter. I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was avoiding me. Even the innkeeper, who had been reluctant to speak, avoided eye contact. I decided to take a walk toward the woods, where I'd seen the flickering lights. The path was overgrown, as if no one had used it in years. The deeper I went, the more oppressive the air became, heavy with a sense of damp earth and something metallic. As I neared the edge of the forest, I heard faint whispers carried on the air. They were indecipherable but strangely melodic, pulling me forward despite my growing unease. I stopped when I found a circle of blackened earth surrounded by strange symbols etched into the bark of the trees. It felt wrong, like I was trespassing on something ancient and forbidden. Before I could inspect it further, the sound of snapping twigs behind me made me freeze. I turned quickly, but there was no one there, at least no one I could see. Determined to leave the town before nightfall, I packed my belongings and headed to my car. But when I stepped outside, a thick fog had descended, far denser than the one I had driven through. On my way in, the air felt colder, heavier, and the world beyond a few feet was completely obscured. Still, I pushed forward, clutching my car keys tightly in my hand. As I neared the edge of town, I saw them, figures moving in the fog. At first, they appeared to be townsmen, but their movements were slow and disjointed, like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. Their heads turned toward me in unison, though I couldn't make out any faces. I froze, unsure whether to run or confront them. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the fog, low and distorted. "You can't leave." My heart raced as the figures began to advance, their footsteps eerily silent. I turned and ran back toward the inn, daring to look over my shoulder. When I burst into the inn, it was completely silent. The cozy, warm atmosphere I'd entered on my first night was now cold and desolate. The innkeeper was gone, and the front desk was overturned, as though she left in a hurry. The journal I'd found the night before was still there, but now the pages were blank. Every word, every frantic scribble had disappeared. I called out for help, but my voice echoed unnaturally, as if the walls of the inn were absorbing the sound. I ran upstairs to my room, hoping to find some semblance of safety, but the moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. My belongings were gone. The bed, the furniture, even the wallpaper looked different, aged, decayed, as if years had passed in the span of a few hours. It was then that I realized the innkeeper might not have fled. Perhaps he had been taken, just like everything else in this cursed place. As I stood frozen in the room, a new slip of paper fluttered to the ground, as though dropped by an unseen hand. It read, The third night is the last. Do not let them find you. My breath hitched as I realized the gravity of the situation. Whoever was behind these warnings knew something I didn't, and they're watching me even now. Desperate for answers, I decided to search the town for anyone who could explain what was happening. But as I walked through the streets, the town felt different, almost unrecognizable. The buildings were deteriorating, their windows shattered and doors hanging loosely on their hinges. Even the air felt heavier, thick with the stench of decay. Just when I thought the eerie silence couldn't get worse, a sound broke through the fog. The tolling of church bells. It was a haunting, mournful sound, each chime reverberating through the empty streets. I followed the sound, hoping it would lead me to someone, anyone. The church stood at the edge of town, its steeple barely visible through the mist. Inside, the air was cold, and rows of empty pews stretched out before me. At the altar, a single candle burned, its flame flickering as though struggling against an unseen force. I stepped closer, noticing an open book on the altar. Its pages were filled with symbols and words I couldn't decipher. But one phrase was clear, written in bold red ink. The price has been paid. Before I could process its meaning, the candle extinguished, plunging the church into darkness. The darkness inside the church was suffocating. I fumbled for my phone, using its dim flashlight to guide me back to the door. Just as I reached it, a sound froze me in place. A faint, otherworldly choir. The voices were haunting, blending harmonies that felt both beautiful and terrifying. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, echoing through the air like a distant memory. As the voices grew louder, the temperature in the church plummeted. My breath fogged in front of me, and I felt an overwhelming urge to run. But when I tried to move, my legs refused to obey. It was as if some unseen force was holding me in place, compelling me to listen. Suddenly, the singing stopped, and the silence that followed was even more unnerving. Then a single whisper brushed against my ear. "Leave!" That was all it took. I bolted out of the church, not stopping until I was back on the empty street. The town had changed again. The once well-kept streets were now cracked and overgrown with weeds. The buildings warped and twisted like they had aged centuries in mere moments. Even the air felt heavier, thick with the stench of decay. I walked cautiously, my footsteps echoing unnaturally, as if the town were amplifying every sound I made. I passed by the dinner, where I'd eaten just the day before. The windows were shattered, and the interior was in ruins. Plates and cups lay broken on the floor, as though everyone had fled mid-meal. The airy parts, the food on the tables, was still fresh, untouched by time. It was as if the town existed in two states, one alive, the other decayed. I couldn't understand what was happening, but I knew I was running out of time. As I neared the inn, I saw a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a man in the dark coat and hat, the one I'd seen the day before. This time, he didn't disappear when I approached. He simply stood there, his face still hidden in shadow. "You can't escape," he said in a voice that seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere. "The town has chosen you." I demanded answers, shouting at him to explain what was happening. He tilted his head, as if considering my question, then pointed toward the woods. "The truth lies there, but you won't like what you find." Before I could respond, he stepped backward into the fog and vanished once again. I turned to look toward the woods, dreading what I might uncover, but knowing I had no choice. Part 2. stood at the edge of the woods, staring into the dark expanse where the mysterious man had pointed. The trees seemed to stretch endlessly, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal fingers against the dim light of the overcast sky. Every instinct told me to run back, to stay within the relative safety of the town. But the cryptic warning and the growing unease in my chest left me with little choice. The air grew colder as I stepped into the forest, the dense canopy above blocking out what little light remained. I felt the weight of the silence around me, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig beneath my feet. As I moved deeper, the strange lights I had seen from the inn began to reappear. They floated aimlessly between the trees, flickering like will-o'-the wisps, drawing me further into the unknown. The ground beneath me felt damp and spongy, and the metallic scent I had noticed earlier was now overwhelming. I came across a cluster of stones arranged in a circular formation, each edged with intricate carvings. They pulsed faintly with the same light I had followed, but as I approached, the glow abruptly faded, leaving me in near darkness. I reached out to touch one of the stones, but the sound of rustling leaves behind me froze me in place. The rustling grew louder, closer, until it was clear that I was no longer alone. I turned slowly, my heart pounding, and saw a figure standing just beyond the circle of stones. It wasn't like the shadowy form I'd seen in the fog. This figure was more defined, though its face remained obscured. It wore tattered clothes, and its posture was unnatural, hunched and stiff. The figure raised an arm and pointed to the ground at my feet, confused. I looked down and saw something half buried in the earth, a wooden box intricately carved but weathered by time. I hesitated before kneeling to dig it out, glancing back at the figure, which remained eerily still. With trembling hands, I lifted the box and opened it. Inside was a collection of old photographs, faded but still recognizable. They showed the town as it once was, bustling with life and full of smiling faces. But as I flipped through them, the images changed. The people in the photos began to blur, their smiles twisting into expressions of fear and despair. The final photograph showed the same circle of stones I was standing in, but instead of being empty, it was surrounded by hooded figures holding hands. The photograph felt cold in my hands, and as I looked closer, the hooded figures seemed to move, their heads turning toward me within the frame. The wind picked up suddenly, carrying with it a low, mournful wail that seemed to come from all around me. I dropped the box and stumbled back, my foot catching on a root. I fell hard, the air knocked out of my lungs, and when I looked up, the figure was gone. The photographs lay scattered around me, and the pulsing light from the stones returned, brighter this time. Shadows began to creep out from the trees, converging on the circle like water flowing downhill. I scrambled to my feet, clutching one of the photographs, and ran back toward the town. The wailing followed me, growing louder and more desperate, until it felt as though the forest itself was alive and screaming. When I finally broke through the tree line, the town was unrecognizable. The buildings were now fully decayed, their walls caving in and roofs collapsed. The streets were covered in thick black vines that pulsed like veins, and the air was filled with an acrid smoke that burned my lungs. I looked around desperately, searching for any sign of life, but the town was empty. Even the inn, once a beacon of faint warmth, was now a hollow shell of its former self. The journal on the front desk was gone, replaced by a single scrap of paper with the same ominous phrase, "The third night is the last." I stumbled stumbled through the desolation, my mind racing with questions and dread. The church bells rang out again, but this time they were distorted. Their once clear tones warped into an agonized screech. Against my better judgment, I followed the sound, down once again to the church at the edge of town. The doors were wide open, and inside, the pews were filled with shadowy figures, their heads bowed as if in prayer. I moved cautiously down the aisles, the weight of their presence pressing against me. None of them reacted to my approach, and their silence was deafening. When I reached the altar, I saw the same book as before, but now its pages were blank except for a single line written in blood red ink. The price must be paid. As I stood there, the shadows in the pews began to rise one by one. Their movements were slow and deliberate, and though they had no faces, I could feel their eyes on me. The air grew impossibly cold, and my breath came out in visible puffs. One of the figures stepped forward, extending a hand toward me. In its palm was an object I couldn't quite make out. Glowing faintly with a sickly green light, my body refused to move, as though some unseen force was rooting me in place. The figure came closer, and as its hand opened further, I saw what it held, a broken pocket watch, its hands spinning backward at an impossible speed. Before I could react, the watch emitted a blinding flash of light. The next thing I knew, I was standing in the middle of the street. The church and a shadowy congregation gone. The town was eerily silent once more, but something was different. The air felt heavier, and the oppressive fog had thickened, obscuring everything beyond a few feet. A faint whisper carried on the wind, repeating the same words over and over. You are one of us now. My heart sank as I realized the truth. The town wasn't just cursed, it was a trap, and I was its newest prisoner. The end. Moral lesson. Curiosity and the lure of the unknown can lead to dangerous paths if approached without caution. Sometimes the pursuit of answers to mysteries beyond our understanding comes at a price too great to bear, reminding us to respect boundaries and heed warnings before venturing into the forbidden. Thank you for watching. Please come back for more captivating stories. God bless you as you subscribe, like, and comment. Bye for now.
A hip-hop song from African folktale and tutorial channels have been live. Yo, listen up, gather round. I got a tale to tell, a story profound. From Africa's roots where the wisdom's found, Sefton AI's the channel that's turning it around. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and turn on the notification bell. Show some love. Sefton A's got the knowledge from above. Folk tales and tutorials to elevate your mind. Subscribe, like, share, comment, turn on the notification bell, and let the wisdom shine. General folk tales to inspirational might. We're sharing the stories that'll ignite your passion for learning, your curiosity too. Sefton AI's the hub where the knowledge is true. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and turn on the notification bell. Show some love. Sefton A's got the knowledge from above. Folk tales and tutorials to elevate your mind. Subscribe, like, share, comment that subscribe button. Like and share, let the world know what's cooking. Sefton A's on the rise with the wisdom of the land.